All right, so I wanted to do a video about what it was like having my car repoed. Okay, so I have a car, I own it, I own the title, it's paid off and everything. But once upon a time ago, when I was still making payments on that car, it got repossessed because I guess I didn't make a payment. So, for anyone who's ever had to make car payments, you know that your payment is due and you should pay it or else. But a lot of times, like depending on who you've financed your car through, if you're going to be late on a payment or if for some reason you can't afford a payment, usually you can work with your financer and, contact them and let them know. Like, especially if it's like my payment's on this date, but I don't get paid until this other date, you can work with them usually and like set up a new payment date, like a new payment schedule based around your paychecks. You can sometimes delay a payment where if you were to skip a payment, then they just add it on to like your payment schedule at the end of when your payments are due. So of course I had the person that I bought my car through or was making payments through, I had to make a payment every 2 weeks. You might be in a situation where you have to make your payments monthly. Of course, it's always best to just buy a car outright, cash up front and not have to make any sort of payments or worry about interest or, anything like that. But, if you can't afford to do such a thing, then you end up going to a dealership and ending up having to make car payments. So that's what I did. And I was pretty good about always paying things on time. And the only time I ever had an issue where I couldn't make a payment, I did contact them and let them know that I was going to have trouble making a payment. And they were able to work with me and set up a new payment schedule so that my payment dates of when payment was due was going to be a different date. So that's just a little bit of backstory. Now, of course, there's times when I guess you could say I got a little bit lazy and I didn't make my payment on time. And of course, it seems like the second you don't make a payment on time, they're calling you on the phone. Like they're going to start hassling you. And it's not like they're just going to call you once and say, hey, your payment didn't go through or your credit card was declined. Or, hey, maybe you forgot to make your payment. We're just calling to remind you about it. No, they're not nice about it. They'll just call you and call you and call you and call you like 10, 20 times a day until you've made that payment. If you don't answer the phone, believe me, they're going to just keep calling. So it's best to just answer the phone and let them know what's going on. So like I said, there was a few times I got lazy. I had the money in my account. I just didn't make the payment like I was supposed to. Usually I had to call in on the phone to make my payments. And, for me, that's just sometimes like a hassle. If I was on auto pay, that probably would have made things easier for me. But the fact that I had to actually go out of my way to make a payment meant that me being lazy means I was slacking. I didn't pay. And then they'd call me on the phone and they'd ask, what's up? Why haven't I made a payment? And then I'd be like, oh yeah, I forgot. And then, I'd go and make the payment. Of course, sometimes if I didn't pay on time, then there would be late fees and whatnot. Okay, so basically, that's my problem. That was just me not being a responsible person. So there were a couple times where, I kind of got, because I got lazy and I got into that habit, I'm like, oh, I didn't make a payment. They'll just call me and it'll all work out in the end. And I guess I relied on that and that was not good because there was a day that I didn't make my payment and then I went outside to my car so that I could, I woke up in the morning and I went outside and I was going to go to work and my car wasn't there. I was convinced the car had been stolen. And so then I called the police. What I thought was really strange is that when I called the police to make this report that my car had been stolen, I was actually surprised that I guess they have some sort of record or database where they can check if your car has actually been repossessed. Because they put me on hold. I was on hold for a long time. And then they came back on the phone and they said that my car had been repossessed, which is like, how would they know that? So I was like, oh, so apparently they must contact the police department to let them know that they're going to be taking your car, because I don't know how else they would have known that. So me calling the police about my stolen car for a payment that was missed, I was 1 day late on making the payment. Well, these people weren't playing around. They came and they got my car. Now, I don't know about your car, but my car has a tracking device on it. So for anyone who, wants to not make a car payment and then just skip town or hide hide their car in this, who knows where you could hide it so that they won't come and repo it. Well, they were able to find me because of the GPS tracking device that's on my car, which is also good that if your car does get stolen, the police could track your car. But I just thought it was really strange that the police department knew that my car had been repoed. And then of course I had to call and say, my car, you guys took my car, I need to make a payment. And at that point, they were like, no, you don't get to just make a payment. You actually have to pay off your car if you want your vehicle back. Like, once your car's been repoed, you're no longer on the payment plan. They take your car and they resell it at auction. And they were telling me that I could basically go to the auction and try to get my car back. And, of course, I'm like, what about all my belongings that are in the car? So this turned out to be a whole big ordeal. That was all because I didn't make a payment. And, I thought it was going to have to be like weeks and weeks or months of where you don't make a payment, where they come and repo your car. That's not how it worked for me. They just came and took it. One day late on a payment, and they were like, got the tow truck out and took my car away. So a lesson learned, and also hopefully I can pass that lesson on to you, that you won't do that sort of thing if you're making car payments. Okay, so then, I ended up having to go back and forth with them to make some arrangements. So instead of making like what should have been like a $200 car payment, they were telling me I'd have to pay like $900 to get my car and to get back onto the payment plan. And this is because not only because I had to make whatever payment was due, then they wanted to like charge me like towing fees and storage fees and, like an additional fee for, having to go through the repo process. So it's like, oh my gosh, so I have to come up with this money. And then I had to make an appointment to go pick up my car. Now, where they towed my car was about 2 hours away from where I was living at the time. The reason this is even a topic is because if you happen to be someone who is doing the car life, van life, or you're living in your car and you're using your car to travel, and if they were to just come and take your car someday, you'd be really stuck. And also all your stuff is in your car. At this point in time, I was actually living in an apartment when this all happened, but it basically made things very difficult for me because I then had to come up with that extra money that I was not planning on spending. I had to find a way to get 2 hours away from where I was living to go get my car back. It wasn't like where I lived, there was just like a bus I could take. And of course, if I wanted to ask one of my friends to drive me, that would have been an issue too, because they were only open Monday through Friday during the hours of 9 to 5 when most people have a job. So not only that, I had to take a day off work to go get my car. So asking for a day off work is kind of a hassle as well. And so if I was going to try to get one of my friends, they would have to take a day off work just to drive me as well. That's kind of a hard sell, especially not if I was I'd have to pay them gas money. That's more money I would have to spend. I was looking into what are my options. Could I do an Uber? I was like, I don't know how I'm going to get 2 hours away from where I live to go pick up my car. Then I tried to think well, no Uber driver is going to drive me 2 hours out of the way and then somehow have to drive themselves 2 hours back. I just didn't see that happening. So if you want to ask what I actually ended up doing, and this is really ridiculous because the only way I could figure out what to do is to take a bus to the farthest point of town that I could, then call an Uber and try to take that for at least a half-hour drive of it, because I thought anything beyond that, I don't know if an Uber driver would even be willing to drive me that far. So I thought, okay, so now once I get to that half hour away, then I'm going to call a second Uber to drive me another half hour. In my mind, I'm like, this is the only way I can do it, because I couldn't get anyone else to give me a ride, and there was no bus or any other transportation to get there. I ended up obviously spending a ton of money just on Ubers, trying to go pick up where my car was at, being held at this lot. It was also weird that when I got down to the lot, yes, I had to pay them some money, but I also think I had to pay something over the phone. So it was all that money, that $900. I think there was some of it I had to pay over the phone, and some of it I had to pay to the car lot that was holding my car. And then I guess what they do is they take everything out of your car. So everything that is your personal belongings, they remove it all from the car. The car is totally stripped, because I guess they're getting the car ready to be sold at auction. So they take everything out of your car, clean it and get it all ready. And it's so all my stuff was thrown into a garbage bag, and it was just all haphazardly thrown into a garbage bag. I had a pair of sunglasses and they were all broken and just thrown into a garbage bag. So, it's kind of they're oh, here's your garbage bag of stuff, and then they give me the keys back. And I'm not sure what they did to actually get into my car to tow it, but I do know that my power locks no longer worked after that. There's more to the story, but a long story. I later actually had to get the locks changed on my car because the key no longer worked on. So I needed a different key, one for the ignition, and then I had to get the car rekeyed for all the doors on the locks. It's a big, long story, but a big hassle. But I do think it's because of something they may have done to my car in order to open it up and then tow it. So I'm not sure what they did exactly, but they're, whether you want to call it damage or they did something to make the power locks no longer work on my car. And so, it took a couple months after that I actually paid off the car. The car title was in my name and, everything's all good. But going through that whole hassle was definitely like one of those learning experiences where it's like you should have just paid your bill on time when you were supposed to, but I didn't. And I was lazy and I was slacking and I thought it was okay to slack. And it actually like really messed me up in the long run financially. And it caused a giant hassle in my life just trying to get the car back. And so, obviously we can't go back in time, but I definitely learned a lesson from that. And hopefully I can pass that lesson on to you.